I'm in the beautiful San Pedro Cholula in Puebla, Mexico. So let me ask, for those of you who are attending this webinar, could you tell me at the chat we're using if you're native English speakers or if you're using, like me, English as a second language? Please type it on the chat so I can know you better. Is English your native speaking language, or is it? Are you using it as a second or third or fourth language? Yes. Second, says Fernando. Okay. Are there any native speaking um, Americans here, or maybe people from Europe, or mm, it's a long call to Australia, but maybe we have people from different parts of the world. In any case, I'm going to try to speak as clear as possible and make this webinar as enjoyable as I can for you. I think this is a very interesting topic, interesting enough for me to spend some time in producing it. And also, it's the first time here in Coaching Week that I present this webinar. I know that the fourth industrial revolution and the 4.0 industries are very in a very big hype today. So let's see how they relate to what's coming on the future and how can we as coaches benefit from it, and also how can we help our clients that are amidst a lot of doubts and maybe negative thinking because of the consequences that this fourth industrial revolution may bring ahead. Let me start by thanking all of the companies, the partners, and all of the people that have has made Coaching Week possible. Without you, this would be a useless effort, or maybe just a few conferences between a handful of people. But because of you, we're reaching and stretching all over, not only Ecuador or Mexico or Colombia or Peru, but even farther. As you know, Business Coaching School is global coaching organization focused on the business coaching. And these are some of the countries and cities where you can find Business Coaching School and licensed partners. And just a little about me. Well, I'm honored to be the first Mexican to be certified as executive coach by Business Coaching School. It has been some years now, and I'm currently not only executive coach, but I've also specialized in team coaching. I'm also a trainer and consultant. I have 3 communication degrees by Universidad de las Américas Puebla. Its name is commonly known as UDLAP. And I've had several successful coaching processes in wide spectrum of industries. I've also been the tutor, trainer, and evaluator for more than 100 new coaches. And I've co-written a book called Coaching Humanista, Aplicaciones, Fundamentos y Herramientas de Esencia No Directiva, that is available only in Spanish. Um, by now, we hope to translate it to English someday in the near future. And it's a very important book on the humanistic approach to coaching that 11 authors, amongst them, I'm there. We're that we as a group are promoting this different kind of approach to coaching. Um, what are we going to talk about today? Well, maybe a lot of you know what the fourth industrial revolution is, but if not, we're going to spend some time talking about the four industrial revolutions, which one are we in right now, and a little about the other three. We're going to talk about some examples of 4.0 industries, and we're going to come up with some predictions for the labor overview. And then we're going to talk about why I think coaching will be necessary. So if you're up to it, I would like to start with a very interesting story. And if you allow me, I'm going to uh, take some excerpts of an article called "The First Global Urban Planning Conference Was Mostly About Manure" by Atlas Obscura, that you can look up in the internet. That I think it's going to be, it's very well written. So, if you don't mind, I would like to read some of its passages. So, the sticking point at the world's first international urban planning conference was a load of crap. It starts the article. When delegates from around the globe gathered in 1898 to hammer out a solution to one of the greatest problems facing their cities, whose consequences they could no longer ignore, they weren't talking about infrastructure challenges, a shortage of resources, or even crime. The problem, they say, was horses and their copious poop. And this is an image of early 1900s New York City. You can see it's quite crowded. So the manure issue had become particularly acute as horse populations swelled in rapidly growing urban centers. It was considered such a looming threat to cities that an 1894 article in the Times of London estimated that within 50 years, dung piles would rise 9 feet high. A similarly concerning New York City prediction argued that by 1930 manure would reach third-story windows. Moreover, 19th century New York was already unsettlingly unsanitary, with whole swatches of with whole swaths of the city dominated by a loathsome train of dependent nuisances like slaughterhouses, facilities for fat melting and gut cleaning, and manure heaps in summer that stretched across entire blocks. But after 3 days of brainstorming and debate that went nowhere, attendees of the conference, frustrated and resigned, called it quits on what had been planned as a 10-day affair. Participants had hoped to hammer out a solution to the horse problem and its smelly attendant consequences, but instead, seeing no way out of the morass, they disbanded and went home. After all, how could they come up with a substitute for an animal that had served humans for thousands of years? Horses were essential to the transportation of people and cargo, as well as source of prestige and power for militaries. But cramped together in such tight spaces, the human density of New York City rose over the 19th century from just below 40,000 people per square mile to above 90,000. The beast became less of an object of convenience and more of a debilitating nuisance. At its peak, New York had an estimated 100,000 to 200,000 equine inhabitants. Each of those horses produced anywhere from 15 to 30 pounds of manure per day, coupled with around a quart of urine that ended up either in their stables or anywhere along their street routes. By the end of 19th century, once vacant lots around New York City housed manure piles that stretched dozens of feet, often between 40 and 60, into the sky. The problem of horse manure had quite literally become larger than life. And the problem comprised more than just excrement. When a horse worked to the bone, plopped over that, the city then had a rotten carcass to address, not to mention the flies and road congestion that accompanied it. Some respite came in the late 1880s and 1890s with the introduction of the cable car and electric trolley car to American cities. But it wasn't until the private automobile became available in the early 20th century that horses began to be phased out of daily life. As prices for hay, oats, and land rose, and fears of horse pollution became more urgent, the masses began to adopt the fledgling technology. By 1912, the number of cars on New York City's roads had surpassed the number of horses. Buyers found cars to be cheaper to own and operate and much more efficient, not to mention more sanitary. The once essential horse came under fire from magazines like Harper's Weekly and Scientific American, which praised the automobile for its economic sustainability and ability to reduce traffic. And so, by some miracle, the problem that had plagued planners and had sent them into a panic began to disappear. Had they known at the first International Planning Conference that their most pressing challenge would essentially resolve itself in years to come, perhaps they wouldn't have wasted so much effort arguing about waste. So, what do you think about this? Let me share with you my personal opinion, and the most intriguing and important problem by the late 1800s was about horse manure, right? But at the same time that the Congress was being held, and even though the Congress had not shown any progress or any solution, the solution um, gestating, uh, was already there, and that solution was about the second industrial revolution, which was all about electricity and cars. Well, not only cars, uh, about some mechanization and electricity. That with that we had the first automobiles, not with steam machines or steam power, but with electricity. And so those predictions that New York wouldn't exist because of all the horse manure, uh, uh, just a second, just a second, someone. Okay, yes, thank you, thank you for that. So I was telling you about this Congress that people couldn't solve the problem, and they were absolutely sure that New York wouldn't exist in the next 30 to 50 years because of the horse manure problem, and it didn't happen. New York is still there, and the solution was innovation and was uh, something that came out of the second industrial revolution. So let's explore our four industrial revolutions. So we have the first one, right? Um, the first mechanical loom in the 1784. Um, this revolution was based on the introduction of mechanical production equipment driven by water and steam power. You all know about this. And we also talked about the second industrial revolution that was based on mass production achieved by division of labor concept and the use of electrical energy. This was in 1870, just less than 20 years before this World New York Congress. Um, then we have the third industrial revolution in 1969 with the first programmable logic controller. And this industrial revolution is based on the use of electronics and IT to further automate production. But now, by 2016, we are facing the fourth industrial revolution, which is based on the use of cyber physical systems. And this has all to do with digital systems and also AI, artificial intelligence. Some examples of 4.0 industries are the autonomous robots, simulation, system integration, the Internet of Things, which is very, very present nowadays, cybersecurity, cloud computing, additive manufacturing, augmented reality, and big data. So I would like to show you a couple examples of what these 4.0 industries are all about. You all know the Amazon Go, right? This is a Amazon store that, as you know, Amazon previously haven't got any stores. It was just all the products were stored and then shipped to the clients, to the buyers. But now they've got this store. And what are they offering? Well, no lines and no waiting. How can that be possible? Well, it's very easy, and it's all about the 4.0. You have an app, and you can check in with this app. Then you go into the store. You don't need your phone anymore. You pick up anything you want, from a salad to a beverage to anything in the store. And it automatically knows what you're grabbing because it has lots of cameras and heat vision and a lot of algorithms that are coming up together with what you're doing in the store, what you're grabbing, and what you're taking out of the store. So, as the ad says, just walk out technology. When you grab anything on the store, the app automatically adds it to your list, and then you can go out and it's already charged. So imagine, how many people do you think works here in an Amazon Go store? Can we have any guesses? With no lines and no checkout, and this is something that's happening right now. The number of people working in an Amazon Go store, it's very, very short. This store maybe would employ around 30 to 60 people in a normal store. And this store, even though I don't have the official number confirmed, I know that there's one cashier, because there's always something unexpected that can happen with your phone. Maybe it broke down, maybe you didn't have a Wi-Fi connection, or your credit card was cloned, or it had expired. There's always something that could happen. So there's one cashier, one human cashier, where you can go and pay in cash if needed. Um, and then there's another person, another people, some other people that are going to fill up the products that you take out. They're going to replace them, and I think maybe there's someone for the cleaning issues, and that's it. So let's say that these stores grow up to be like a 7-Eleven, or here in Mexico like an Oxxo, or just like any convenience store, any corner convenience store. Think of all the people that are not going to be employed. Obviously, this is going to be very attractive to the consumer because, as you know, millennials and even Generation X people are not very, how do I put it? They don't like real human contact anymore. They like their friends, their family, but if they can avoid other people, they will do it. So, what about this? You can just go with your app, enter the store, grab what you want, and then go out. It's easy, it's quick. You're using technology because they're highly tech lovers, and you don't have to interact. So I think this idea is going to prosper. And then we have a second example. Well, this was Amazon Go, and now we're going to talk about the new self-driven Uber. You know, I think you know about this also. These are cars that are self-driven. You don't really need a person behind the wheel, even though by this phase you have one. That it's an engineer, they call it like that, to come up or to participate if anything should happen, because it's still at test phase. And even though this technology has had some recent problems, there was a woman that was run over by one of these Ubers. Um, you can see there's a whole fleet of them that were already bought in, I think it's Pittsburgh, and are already substituting the normal Uber cars. So you can see this is amazing, right? You can ask for an Uber with your Uber app as normally. Then this self-driving car comes, you just get in, it will show you how it's working, and it will take you to your destination using the Internet of Things and using all the intelligence that this kind of technology can provide you with. Let's say an avenue it's closed, or it's jammed, or it has a lot of traffic, then it by itself will choose a better route to take you to it. So this is already happening, and these are only two examples of 4.0 industries, and there are lots of them, and we could talk all morning about them. But the thing I just wanted to show you is how they look, and this is almost magical, but it's already here. From this, we have basically two postures. We have the techno optimist and the techno pessimist. So the techno optimists are people that are very happy with these changes, and that are expecting this to evolve a lot more and can't wait to see more 4.0 industries. And then we have the techno pessimists that are, according to this city research, less than the first one, that are not very happy about what's happening with this 4.0 industries, because they're seeing that there are lots of jobs that are going to be lost and a lot of people that are going to be jobless. So for the people that are here with us, what do you think? Where do you see yourself, in the techno optimist or the techno pessimist? What do you think about these industries? Do you think it will bring new opportunities? That it'll bring more challenges? And how do you think it relates to your coaching profession? Do you think it affects what you're doing or not? Do you see a 4.0 coach industry or coaching industry? So let me show you what the World Economic Forum says about the fourth industrial revolution and the new opportunities it brings with it. As you can see, there are lots of different categories of new jobs that are going to be even whether created or evolved. And the topics are disruption to jobs and skills, where you can find artificial intelligence and robotics, or future of mobility. Then you have innovation and productivity, or inequality, or agile governance, security and conflict, business disruption, fusing technologies, ethics and identity. And you have lots of other jobs that we couldn't say are micro jobs, but let's just talk about 3D printing. You know how big that industry is right now, and how big it'll be. I don't know if you watch Netflix. I was yesterday, um, before going to sleep, I was watching the Lost in Space series with my wife, and the 3D printing was a given, a fact, something that was very normal for this futuristic um, series. But it's already here. We don't have to wait to the apocalypse, or to Armageddon in Earth. We already have 3D printing, and its use is each day growing and growing. Then there are the techno pessimists that are researching and saying that technology will eliminate up to 10 million jobs in the next decade. And according to the OCDE, the 57% of jobs are subject to automatization. 65% of today's students will work on jobs that are yet to be created. And these are some of the countries that have the most risk on being replaced by automation. Um, Thailand, for example, China, Ethiopia, but we can see also Argentina, which is a more near example for us. So the future is here, as I was telling you, and it's again man versus machine. And when I say man, obviously I refer to the human race, to both men, women, and any other genre alike. So how are we going to compete with machines? How are we going to do this? Do you remember the John Henry story? This was a story I knew from comics, from Superman comics. Um, and John Henry was, as I remember, an African American worker that was put into competition with a machine that nailed railroad nails. And even though in that story John Henry beat the machine, he won. By the end of the contest, he died because of the effort. So are we going to do the same thing right now? Are we going to compete with artificial intelligence or digital systems um, taking our capabilities to the extreme, or should we work in strengthening some other characteristics, human characteristics that machines can never do or accomplish or equal? And in this context, we all know about the VUCA, right? The VUCA world or the VUCA reality, which is these are it's volatile. That this means that things that are present now maybe won't be there tomorrow. It's uncertain. It's very difficult to predict what's going to happen in the future. Like the Congress I told you about at the beginning of this webinar, it's very complex. There are lots of actors, whether it be economic, social, politic, political actors, scientific, religious, cultural, etc., etc. There are many actors in this present reality to be taken into consideration, and it's been very complex, and it's also ambiguous. This means that the same thing that two people are observing are, for one, it could be a very good thing, and for the other, a very bad thing. Let's say the Trump effect. Some people are delighted and some people hate him, and it's the same fact. Why? Well, reality now is ambiguous. So this is the reality our clients and us ourselves face. What are we going to do about it? Well, as you know, coaching, it's all about the individual taking responsibility for his life, on this understanding himself as the main character of his or her existence. So we have to change this buka to a different level. We have to talk about value, and you know that the valuable things in life and in the market, and if we talk about value in the workplace, are things that at the same time scarce and useful. So we have to help our clients with the coaching process to find what of him or herself, and his work is valuable, is at the same time scarce and useful. Um, he needs to understand what's happening and understand from a responsible perspective. Not that what he has got in the present, whether it be good or bad, it's due to outer topics, questions, or um, events, but it's mostly about his choices and his consciousness in the moment that he chose. Creativity is going to be very important because, as you know, machines as of yet are not creative, but they are all only operative. And this all has to help humans to get a sense of accomplishment, um, which is the top of the Maslow pyramid. So this is something that can be inciting, and that are the policies that are most likely to be effective to offset the risk of automation impacting labor and wealth distribution. And look at the first two: investment into education and encouragement of entrepreneurship. So this is the field that coaches can work with. And if this actually happens in the first world countries where government will put some more money into it, this is an opportunity for us. So why coaching becomes necessary for clients? Well, as you know, coaching works with intuition. This is something that machines cannot do. So if humans work more on their intuition, they can add value to their jobs or to their work. Where with creativity, as I was saying, this is something that machines cannot do, and only humans can. And this is something you can detonate with coaching. Then we have the self-confidence, and this is very important because if you have a not very confident human, his job will not be very good at performing or on its performance. So this is something that coaching has a lot to do with. Motivation. So a machine is not motivated. It's just it's not even animated. It just works and does whatever its program tells it to. But humans are motivated or can be motivated, and as we know, it's self-motivation. So what is that makes you go out of bed each morning? This is something that coach can help you with. And if your client, if you yourself find what actually motivates you, this is going to be very powerful for you. And learning. Even though machines learn and they learn very fast, they do not learn as humans do. And machines basically accumulate knowledge. And this is something that humans also do, but we as humans can learn from our mistakes. And by making mistakes, we then can identify and correct the mistake, and then we learn. So learning is the most important part of the coaching process, and it has to be a very organic and tacit learning. And as a coach, what are the skills to be developed? Well, this is something I find very important. As coaches, we have to correctly diagnose the problem and the client alike. Because if we don't learn to accurately diagnose what's happening with our client, maybe we will try to give him a solution with an unuseful tool. What I'm trying to say is that coaching does not help everyone and it's not useful in every situation. So we have to be very, very sure on that the situation that our client is facing, it's going to be very accurately corrected, or that coaching can actually help. Then we have this second point, which are part of the humanistic approach to coaching, which is to stimulate, enhance, and enable the tacit learning. As you know, we have the technical learning and then we have the tacit learning. The technical learning, it's something that is very important, but in its core, every learning experience is tacit, and there are some things that cannot be taught. Uh, Taught, like for example, if you want to ride a bicycle, uh, there's no book for riding a bicycle or a crash course on YouTube to riding a bicycle. You have to get on the bike and then learn by correction and mistake. That's it. You just have to get on the bike and try again. But this is not only true for biking or for bikes, but also for entrepreneurship, for sales, for being a good dad or mother, for being a good spouse, for all the things that are most important in life. There's the tacit um, aspect, and this is something that we as coaches must work a lot with our clients. Then reduce interferences. This is a second approach in humanistic that was really one of, in reality, one of the first one. This is what Timothy Galway taught us with the inner game theory. Then this is something that John Whitmore was worked his whole life, and is how to promote responsibility, how to help our client understand that he is the utmost important um, character in his life. And he also developed with Graham Alexander and Alan Fine the GROW model, which is the most natural way of thinking toward action. And finally, here in Business Coaching School, you know that we are licensees of the IAC, the International Association of Coaching, and this association has 9 coaching masteries that are to be developed by the coach. Well, that's basically it. If I had to sum it all up, it would sound something like this. We do not know right now and cannot predict what's going to happen in reality in the next 50 years, let alone 100 years. So we know that we are facing the machines at the workplace, and this could have very interesting opportunities, and also can put our life at risk, our work life and our existence also. What should we as coaches and as clients be working on? I would bet on not to compete with the machines, but to develop what's unique about human beings. And how can coaching help this? Well, it's because coaching actually works with the tacit aspect of learning, something that it's not manageable by machines and that only humans can do. In other words, it's a language unknown to machines that only humans can speak and only humans can develop. And this is something we have to work because this is going to bring value to our work or to our profession as coaches. Well, I think you liked this proposal I gave you. This is some of the resources that I searched, and I just want to finish by thanking you and telling you these are some of the venues with the partners that I'm going to be working on in the next months. So I'm going to be in Ecuador, in Querétaro, Mexico, in Lima, and again in Querétaro. And if you want to go to the international executive coaching certification by Business Coaching School, I will be very pleased to see you there. Well, thank you, and see you maybe next time. If we have some questions, I would be delighted to answer them. Are there any questions? Comments? Okay. So, given that they're not, I would like to close this coaching week again by thanking all of you. It has been a very fulfilling and very instructional week for me. I was able to attend lots of our webinars, and the ones I couldn't, I can't wait to watch them once they're published. I hope you too. Um, Again, thank you for your presence, for your attention, and see you next time. This was Coaching the Fourth Industrial Revolution.